Greetings VC, Andy here again. And this video is my sort of regular monthly update on new releases that I bought in the previous month. So here we are, beginning of July, and I'm looking at 6 new release albums that I bought during June. Huge range of styles, you know, ages and so on. I've got some relatively, no debuts, but some sort of, you know, second albums, quite a few, and some umpteenth albums from old stages. But I'm going to start with a fabulous jazz record, and it is, it is called Where Rivers Meet, and it is by Your Brother's Keeper and Gary Bartz. So, you know, not only is this my jazz album of the year so far, I think this is the album of the month, and I've got some really important other albums, but this is utterly superb and could well be a contender for my top 5 of the year so far. And it's a collaboration. I mean, Gary Bartz is you know, 70s US jazz saxophonist, 85 years old now, and Your Brother's Keeper are a young, vibrant jazz collective from London, and actually this is their second time together. So this this journey apparently started in 2019 when Giles Peterson, the sort of, you know, jazz DJ and producer, had the idea of connecting Gary Bartz with a London jazz septet called Maisha, M-A-I-S-H-A, and so they got together. I think there was you know, in the studio and I think at a festival, and out of that they released in 2020, I believe, an album called Gary Bartz and Maisha. Now, in the intervening period, which I've not heard, I confess, though I do need to look it up. In the meantime, in the resulting years, Maisha have sort of evolved and morphed, and basically changed their name to Your Brother's Keeper. So this is essentially a follow-up to that, but with a slightly different band, with a different name, and it's just superb. So I saw it described, let me read this, as masterfully blending Bartz's warm, searching alto tone with atmospheric modern electronics, modal piano, and patient, unhurried improvisation. And I think that's fair. It's really quite cinematic and at times almost prog-like. Now, in saying that, this is not jazz fusion. You know, it's not that sort of jazz prog crossover. It's proper jazz. In addition to Bartz's superb sax playing, there's some really fabulous trumpet by Your Brother's Keeper's trumpeter, who is called Axel Kana Lindstrom. Sounds Swedish, I think, but that's particularly so on the second and third track. There's only, how many tracks on here? There's only 7 tracks, so they're all sort of reasonable length. And the second and third track, Ground Loot and the Clips is really good, and have his superb trumpet going on. So standout moments are the aching, quietly intense ballad, the opener Cauldron. Then there's the sprawling 10 minutes on here, Closer Mantra, which again is all Gary Bartz. So I've done I've added that to the playlist, but it's a live one. It's slightly shorter than the 10 minutes. And then there's the centerpiece, Eclipse, you know, which is this wonderful trumpet. So, but the whole album, it's front to back, is absolutely superb. So I've got my Mono t-shirt because Mono have dropped a new album this month, Snowdrop, which was released either right at the end of May or right at the beginning of June, and it's their 13th album, So, you know, they've been around a long time. They're one of my favourite bands. I think I've got pretty well, maybe there's a couple missing, but I've got all of their albums in one format or another. Fair number on vinyl. But this album has been described as a cinematic exploration of grief and hope. And essentially it's a paean to their long-term partner and producer, Steve Albini, who of course died in 2024, I think it was, when they were touring the previous album, Oath, which I'll come to. It was recorded at Albini's studio, Electrical Audio in Chicago, by Brad Wood, I don't know. But it's been self-produced essentially by the leader of the band, Takakika Goto, I think is his full name. I'm sure that's not a good pronunciation. And Jeremy Devine, brilliant name, who basically runs their record label, Temporary Residence. So Mono, you know, Mono going back, I've always been quite fond of playing with an orchestra, both in concert, but also on record. But they've sort of taken it slightly further this time, because pretty well all, if not most, if not all, let's say that, of the tracks on this, and there are 8 tracks, they're quite long tracks, have you know, feature the orchestra. But it's an unusual orchestra in the sense that there's no brass in there at all. It's a 10-piece strings orchestra supported by an 8-person choir. Mono have a really distinctive playing style with sort of twin tremolo picked guitars, and they often build, you know, they have that classic post-rock crescendo build-ups, and that's also here, but overall it feels slightly gentler than usual, and I think that's because of the I think that's partly to do with the you know, deliberately because of the emotion of it and so on, and what it's talking about, recovery from grief. But it's also, I think, thanks to the you know, to the all strings orchestra and the choir's soft singing. So, you know, the choir singing is really sort of part of the instrumentation. Now, I confess I've not listened to this enough, so you know, here in the UK we've had a hell of a heat wave, and you know, windows open and spending a lot of time outside. So I've not, you know, all these albums I haven't listened to as much as I would normal, and I need to listen to them more. But this hasn't grabbed me as instantly as the previous album, Oath, did. So, but it's still a really good album. I know that, but I think it's more of a grower. I need to listen to it. You know, and I think if I look at their 13 albums, I suspect this would be somewhere in the middle, probably top half, but towards the middle. And that sounds like damning by faint praise. But I think the thing with Mono, in my view, is that they only have 2 types of albums, a handful of really superb ones, and the rest of it are still excellent. And I suspect this will fall in the excellent category. I like it, just not quite as much as say the last album, Oath, and it's certainly not up there with you know, with the absolute best. So it's still a good record though. Let me just pick up some of the records. All of the tracks have, you know, a name. Quite often, I mean, Snowdrop obviously is a flower, and then you've got Winter Daphne is a flower, Gerber is a flower, and Hedera I think is. So there's a mix there, but they all also have a subtitle. So Snowdrop is Hope. Gerbera, which I think is possibly the best track, or one of anyway, is Loyal Love, and that's really, it's got some very intricate drum work on there, and it sort of builds to a climax, a real climax, but it's buoyed by the choir. It's got, you know, the choir's all in there, the strings are in there, and sort of the last 2 tracks, they close the album. basically 8 tracks here, and there's 2 on each side. The last 2, Bells of Ireland and Farewell to Spring, are also highlights. So Bells of Ireland is subtitled Eternal Gratitude, and that's sort of quite a reflective one. And it does have chiming bells appropriately, and quite delicate piano and strings. And then Farewell to Spring, which is subtitled I Miss You, which I assume is a reference to Albini, is a really dynamic finale. It builds from, you know, the sort of chilling, sounds like synths almost, though they're not usually a synths band, to a real wall of sound crescendo. So it's an interesting album. I want to listen to it more. It is technically superb. So it's a 45 RPM cut, and it sounds it. So it's got the expansive grooves, and it's on two colours. So yellow, LP1 is yellow, and LP, whoops, 2 is blue. And I don't think all the versions are like this. I got this one from the band's Bandcamp site. It was there were signed versions, but I was too late to order those. And the next one is another umpteenth album from a long-term favourite, and that is Death Cab for Cutie. And their new album is called I Built You a Tower. And this is something of a break-up record, in which Ben Gibbard, the leader of Death Cab for Cutie, ruminates on the end of his second marriage. And it's a surprisingly mixed record. It's got sort of, you know, quite melancholic acoustic sounds, which then juxtapose with quite aggressive, you know, post-punk distortion in there. It's a lot less glossy, I would say, than some of their records, and a couple of the tracks do sound quite raw, The Jekyll and Hyde nature of this record is epitomised by the twin title tracks. So on side A, the 4th track, you've got I Build You a Tower, bracket A, and then the whole album, at the end of side B, closes with I Build You a Tower, bracket B. And they're sort of... I read I'll read this because I thought this describes it better than I could. And so this was in Kerrang. I saw it online, and it says the former is full of self-reproach and regret, and sets up the debilitating fall that then occurs on the latter, which closes the record in a snarl of bitter melancholy and emotional fatigue. It is Death Cab at their brooding, beautiful best. So there you go. And like all these months' albums, I need to listen to it more. But I think this is definitely a grower. And one of the things I really ought to look up, Death Cab for Cutie. Now, I know that is named after a track by the completely eccentric Bonzo Dog Doodah band, but I've never quite worked out why a guy from Washington State would name his band after a 1960s track by probably the most eccentric, nuts British band ever. I don't get the connection, but there you go. Anyway, it's a single LP. I think there's 10 tracks on it, or 12, I don't know. 11 tracks, and it's just plain black, this version of it. And now we have the Fuzz Club album of the month, which is, I'll show you on here, is by a band called Mirror Revelations, and the album is called Ignea. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So Mirror Revelations are they're a trio from Mexico, and it's absolutely pounding heavy industrial psych. It's got motoric rhythms, you know, or drumming, really that pounding drumming you get, crushing bass and really churning pedal-driven synths. To me, it is a lot like Wooden Ships, and particularly Wooden Ships in the era of their second album, DOS. So if you know wooden ships and you know DOS and you know the track motorbike on here, think that, and that basically is what you're getting here. Now, it's not a copy, it's not the same, but it's very much in a similar style, and I absolutely love it. I think it's absolutely fabulous. So Ignea means of fire. And that's the theme of the album, basically. So you've got it's sort of exploring the theme of fire and ignition and stuff like that. I mean, it's instrumental, though there are some sort of vocal droning going on here and there, which really adds to the instrumentation. The track. Where the second track, Incendiar, actually means fire. It translates literally as fire, and that really sums it up. That's very if that had appeared on DOS, you wouldn't have necessarily thought it was some other band. Let me read the Fuzz Club always produce a good description on here, so I like to read it. Toluca, Mexico Trio, Mirror Revelations, return with Ignea. A raw blast of heavy motoric drive and industrial psych intensity that's built to dance as it burns. Stripped to the core with a live show in mind, pedal process synths and relentless bass and drums backbone, power songs of resistance and ignition. Quote, the name of the album refers to fire, which for us, this is one of the bands speaking, which for us symbolises transformation and change. Ignea represents that ignition point, the beginning of something that burns, expands and transforms. And very good it is. So this one is number 3 of 300. There's only 7 tracks on there, so a reasonable length. And somewhat appropriately, it's in a very sort of dark red and black splatter. And so we come to the Rough Trade album of the month. And this is really different. And it's by Jalen Ngonda. And it's called Doctrine of Love. And there you see him on the back. And it's a very, very old school sort of retro cover, and it's somewhat appropriate because Jalen Ngonda was born in, Ngonda, Ngonda sounds a bit, thinking of Zamrock, it sounds like sort of from that part of Southern Africa. But he was born in Maryland and is based in Liverpool, which I think he went to the Performing Arts College there. And this is, sort of to describe the easiest way is, it's 60s and 70s Tamla Motown, pure and simple. That's what this is. Now, back in the 70s, in my teens, I would have absolutely despised this. It's not rock. But obviously over the years, my tastes have expanded and changed, and I really like soul. And this is really superb soul. It is excellent, it's lush. It beautifully showcases his soaring falsetto and vocal acrobatics. He's got a great range on his voice. The musicianship and the production are impeccably crafted, and they've got lush strings, punchy horns, and gospel-tinged backing vocals. I think the 4th track on here, called Burning Temptation, is a real standout, and it's really sort of features something of everything on this that makes this album good. It's got a great groove, it's got that real sort of Motown feel, great lead and backing vocals, and horns aplenty. The closer, taken out of the picture, is entirely different, and some of the sort of second side is much more reflective, and on this one it's slower as well, and it's a tale of lost love, as I think a number of the tracks are. And it fades out, and it fades the album out, so it doesn't go out with a bang, it goes out with a fade. This was a real surprise, and I love it. And usually with the Rough Trade one, it comes with some sort of bonus. And this cut, I've not actually played it, but I think it's a CD, and I think it's a CD of the whole album. But it also came with a download code, which I used. If I'd thought about it, I could have just ripped that. And it is on. The vinyl's really unusual. It's red, white and blue stripy stuff. And last, but very much not least, we have some Pink Floyd, and it is 8 tracks, obviously a compilation. Now, did I need a compilation of Pink Floyd with tracks from albums which I've already got? Well, of course, no. But there's something about this which I had to get. So, as the name suggests, it's got 8 tracks on there, and it features basically tracks from through the 70s. So from Medal in 71 right through to The Wall in 79, and something from every album in that sequence. Not necessarily in exact order. So, for example, it's side 1. There's 4 tracks on each side because it's 8 tracks. So it starts with One of These Days from Medal, then What's the Deal, which is from Obscured by Clouds, which is 72. Then we come into Money from Dark Side of the Moon, 73. And then Another Brick in the Wall, Part 2, which is obviously from The Wall. Then back to 75, Wish You Were Here. Then Time, back from obviously from Dark Side of the Moon, Comfortably Numb, and then it finishes on what is probably the most interesting track, and what we might call a new track, which is the 8-track, as in an 8-track cassette thing, which people put in their cars then, version of Pigs on the Wing from Animals 77. And that is the new bit on here, because it is very different from the normal LP version of it. It's a bit longer, but it's got a guitar solo on there by Snowy White, who was the back. I mean, he's not sort of listed as he's not part of the 4-piece band, but he was effectively their backing guitarist in the late 70s. So from Animals and The Wall, and then carried on with Waters later on, and also played a bit with Thin Lizzy, I think, in the 80s. It's really quite interesting, and I don't, it's not. I don't think it's better than, and I don't think it's worse than, but it is different from the LP version. It's been remixed by Stephen Wilson, who's done an amazing job, because he's somehow managed to get all these disparate tracks to flow together, from one to the next, almost as if they were from the same album, which obviously they're not. The pressing and the mastering of this is absolutely superb. So it might well be an unnecessary money grab, but it's a fabulous listen, and I'm very happy to have it. And as I say, it's got 8 tracks and it's on Sky Blue. So there you go. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Cheers.